Welcome to the Top Business Leaders Podcast. You'll learn how successful people just like you have grown their businesses, expanded their influence, and made money by writing a book. On each episode, you'll learn the inside secrets to help you create a book that can serve as a powerful marketing tool to skyrocket your business. I'm your host, Dan Janal. I help thought leaders, business executives, and entrepreneurs write their books. To find out more and to download our show notes, go to topbusinessleaders.com. Welcome, everyone. We're with Mark Amtower today. Welcome.
Dan, long time, man. Great to be with you again.
Yeah, it's always great to see old clients come back. And Mark, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about what you do?
All right. I started my company in January of 1985. Back then, nobody seemed to be focused on my market in a marketing kind of way. I help companies with the marketing to the federal government. And, even the ad agencies back then weren't specialists in this. So I just decided to park my butt right there and start the company. And 35 plus years later, I'm still doing it.
Well, you're known as the man in your industry, that's for sure. How did you get there? I mean, were you the first in the marketplace, or was it the book that placed you there? Tell us about that.
The book didn't come for actually quite a while after. I did start writing articles for trade pubs and things like that. And it was weird because at one of the events where I spoke, the DMB, Chuck Tannen's Direct Marketing to Business back in the early 90s, I give presentations where you get stuff you can use right away. So this one woman asked at the end, she said, "Where's your book?" And I said, "I don't have a book." And she said, "You gave me more information in the past hour than most books give me, period." So, the seed was planted, and I knew I had to. I just wasn't sure how to.
Well, how did you do it? Can you think back to those early days? I know you're a pro, and you've written several other books since then, but as a beginning writer, what kind of struggles did you have?
I wasn't sure, what to put in it, what not to put in it. So ultimately, what I ended up doing was recording my 3.5-hour workshop, Government Marketing Best Practices. And that became the basis for the book. Once it was recorded, I had it transcribed, I edited it, had it edited by somebody who could actually really edit stuff. And then I went the self-publishing route. And I was very fortunate. As a self-published author, I sold 9,000 copies.
Great.
Not bad.
Not bad at all. What did you learn about the process of turning a seminar into a book with transcription? Give us some hints about that.
We all think we know when we put stuff down or when we're speaking live, we know what we're saying, we know what we're trying to get across, but that doesn't always convey. So the editing process is probably the most important when you're writing, to make sure that things are succinct, they're clear, and they say precisely what you want them to say. So when I'm writing, if I'm just jotting out a quick post on LinkedIn or something, I'll read it 2 or 3 times, then I'll read it out loud, and I won't have somebody edit it. If I'm writing something longer, my daughter has 2 degrees in English. She has no concept really of my business. I mean, she knows what I do, but she doesn't understand the jargon. But I'll give it to her for clarity purposes, and she cleans my stuff up and makes it hum. So that process of having that second set of eyes, I actually call it adult supervision, because that's what it is. You know what you want to say, but is it really being conveyed properly? Get that second set of eyes out there, even a third if you can swing it. I did a book with Wiley almost 10 years ago now, and boy, the editing process was forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually in the process now of working with a client. He did a 1-hour seminar webinar and got it transcribed. And you're right, there's a lot that can be added, a lot that was repeated, a lot that wasn't as clear as it could have been, and some things that were absolutely perfect. And then he did it again to a different audience, and there were slightly different anecdotes, slightly different stories, so you put them in as well. And it was like, okay, this story was told better the second time than the first time. So there are little details that made it better. So it takes a good editor to see how to mesh everything. So I'm glad that you have a person in-house, in family, who can do it for you, because
Yeah.
it is definitely
You
needed.
said something really important there, though. A lot of people think that when they're writing, they're just conveying facts or statistics or whatever. That story factor is extremely important to help people understand how things are implemented, how they're done, to illustrate really what's going on with a particular concept. So, stories, big part.
How do you tell your stories? Do you have any tips for that?
Um, I've been a market observer for 35 years, so I have, kind of anecdotes for all things. I keep notes on those. Anywhere I go, my moleskin goes with me, so I'm constantly making notes of things that are going on. I make notes particularly if people are saying things in a particular way that resonates, or if in my tiny brain the perfect phrase pops up. I mean, how long have you been writing, Dan? Like forever?
Oh, it's a long time, yes.
Yeah. So when that perfect phrase pops into your head, you've got to get it down right away, or it escapes.
Yeah,
I hate when that happens.
Well, I even have a notepad by the side of my bed, and I would write little notes at 3 a.m. when I'd wake up, and then I'd wake up at 7 a.m. and look at the notes and just be a big scribble. So, so now I've learned if I get a good if I get a good idea, I'll actually turn the light on and write, and then I'll turn the light off and try to go back to sleep.
Right. Yeah.
I have my good notes in the morning. So you've written a number of books. Tell us how you use the books in your marketing.
I have found that unless you are, David Meerman Scott or Ann Handley or somebody at that particular level, books are not going to be a profit center for most business authors. Mm-hmm. What they are, though, is the best door opener and business card you could ever have if you produce something worthwhile. So you don't have to be a bestseller to reap the benefits of it. There's nothing like walking into somebody's office and seeing one or more of your books on their shelf. Mm-hmm. Okay, your credibility is established, and that's key. If you want to be a thought leader, you want to be a subject matter expert, you want to be recognized in a particular field, you've got to write, you've got to speak, and sooner or later you have to think about generating a book. And the process is intimidating to a lot, but I know you help people, grasp it in a way that makes it real, makes it palpable.
Exactly.
That's important.
Exactly. I tell people that no one wants to read the entire encyclopedia about a topic. So that's one of the big problems that people have. They think they have to know everything about everything. Well, your readers don't want to read everything about everything. They want to know that you can help them solve a problem. So if you position the book that shows that you're the thought leader who can take them from mess to success because you've done it before with other clients exactly like them, then you're likely to pick up some clients along the way. What do you think? Yeah, exactly. Cool. So you've written more than one book. Why not rest on your laurels? Why not just use one book for the rest of your career? Why did you write a second book and a third book? And I don't even know how many books you have now.
Well, 7. But only 2 of them deal directly with my business. One was actually the result of a speech that I gave back in 2005. Why epiphanies never occur to couch potatoes. And a couple of my advisors were there when it was a lunch talk, right? 20, 25 minutes. And two of my advisors are in the audience, and they both came up after and said, "This has to be your next book." and I'm thinking it's going to be a pretty damn short book if it's 25-minute speech. And it was a relatively short book, but it was a worthwhile process. It sold pretty well. Again, self-published. But I write all the time. I am a columnist in a publication called Washington Technology. So I produce, 600-word column once a month there. I have a newsletter that goes out pretty much every week. That's another 800 words. I post on LinkedIn. I post on my blog. I do occasional articles for other people. So I'm writing frequently. I write to make sure that I understand my thought process. So I'm pretty much compelled. I speak maybe 20, 25 times a year at industry events, but I don't record when I speak, which is a mistake. But writing lets me get things out in front of me before I put it out in front of the public. But I'm observing things, I'm sharing things. So the article or the post may be a story, it may be a concept, it may be maybe tips on using LinkedIn. So, but I probably write just about every day.
That's great. That's a great habit to get into. I'm sure people are listening and amazed that you can find so much content to write about. A lot of my prospects and clients say, I'm stumped. What can I write about? I'm out of ideas. What do you say to people who come to you with those kinds of thoughts? Where do you get your ideas from?
I get my ideas from the people who come to me. I mean, I'm a consultant. I'm a market observer. I have. Do you use Google Alerts?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So I have 20 plus topics that I track through Google Alerts. I get newsletters from multiple sources, including places like Marketing Profs, which I think is a quite good source. So there's always something out there that's tripping something in my mind to make me say, this works in a lot of different places. Can it work in government contracting? This is a different market. So a lot of the things people do in consumer marketing or even in B2B marketing won't work here. So I'm always looking for venues, for tactics that are different, that have applicability in this market. And if I think they're viable, I'll start writing about them. I'll send the articles to my friends who are, CMOs at various companies and, look for their feedback.
Mm-hmm. Great. A lot of my prospects and clients, they say they either don't know what to write about or they may have ideas, but they're saying, I have so many ideas, I don't know what to put into the book and what to leave out of the book. Do you ever have that issue?
Yeah, but I mean, I go back to my daughter. I like things to be sequential, and oftentimes I think they are, and she'll say, "Why is this here?" Or shouldn't it be at the end? Shouldn't it be at the beginning? Or shouldn't it be just somewhere else completely?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that editing process helps, but when you come up with the idea for a book, if it's a broad, overarching book, the one I did for Wiley was that kind of book, selling to the government. So I had to cover a lot of different topics. My first book, Government Marketing Best Practices, was just about marketing to the government, a field that I'm much more comfortable in. So normally I'm writing about tactical issues. I'm looking at what other people have done and writing, the good, the bad, and the ugly. If it's bad and ugly, I won't name the perpetrator. But if it's good or great, I love to name the company.
Mm-hmm.
That can open doors.
Sure. What else do you do in terms of marketing to get clients as a result of using your books?
Um, you know, I for selling to the government, the one I did with Wiley, I always have a case on hand. So if I'm visiting somebody new, again, it's that door opener. It's that ultimate leave behind. You can leave behind your collateral material; it'll be tossed. You can leave behind your business card; it may be tossed. If you leave a book, they aren't going to toss it.
Great idea.
So,
Um, what inspires you to write a new book? I know you have all this content you're writing every week. When do you say, this actually would be a book? People would need to know all about this. How does that
oh,
enter your thought process?
I have currently three concepts for books, all of which are subsets. So there's what 100 books on LinkedIn out there, but there's not a book for LinkedIn for government contracting.
Hmm.
So that's on the horizon. So narrow it down to the field in which you work, rather than try to do something for the universe. Thought leadership is huge in the government market. Developing that subject matter expert platform, that's another concept that I have. I probably already have about 30,000 words on that one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got a good start, and it may only go to 50,000. I'm only writing as long it's going to be as long as it needs to be, but not longer just to hit a word count.
Yeah.
So the other one is kind of the differentiation, but that again that ties back into the thought leadership. You have to differentiate if you want to be a thought leader. Jack Trout and Al Reese were talking about that back in the 80s and 90s. So it's not new, but doing it right is not as easy as a lot of people think.
Very good point. How do you do it right, and what have you seen people do wrong?
Um, when you claim an area of expertise without measuring the competition. So I start with, what do you do best? Is it going to make you money? Do you like that area? I mean, you have to have some enthusiasm for your topic if you're going to pursue it seriously. If you have limited enthusiasm for it, that's going to show, and it's going to reflect in your work. So you got to have focus, you have to have enthusiasm, and you have to know who the competitors are. Once you know who the competitors are, you can start seeing what they write, where they speak, and how they're positioning themselves. So every market niche morphs. Mm-hmm. So can you develop a subset? Is there a part of this that they don't cover or don't cover well? Those are the areas where I like to start with, not just with my clients, but I have to do it with myself. So, I was the first marketing consultant in government contracting. There are now a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them are people that I've mentored. And a lot of them are really, really good. There's some that aren't, but how do I keep differentiating? Well, I produce more content than anybody else right now. So that helps. I have more venues than most because I also have a weekly radio show here in DC on the radio station that serves the federal market. And I've had that for 14 years now. And they asked me to come in to start the show because they didn't have a show that faced the contracting community. The station prior to my entrance was exclusively information for government employees.
Cool. You mentioned that you self-published. You've also published with Wiley. So have I,
Mm-hmm.
Wiley and self-published. Why did you decide to self-publish, or why do you decide to go with Wiley? What is the differentiating factors for you to make that decision?
Well, Wiley actually approached me. It's funny. You know David Meerman Scott.
Sure.
Yeah. So David's a friend of mine. He's been on my show several times. He's the one whose first edition of New Rules got me thinking about how to apply all those things in the government market. And that's 2007. So we've been friends for a while. He was in a meeting with their editorial people, and somebody brought up the concept, Wiley should do a government book. And David said, "Whoa, if you're going to do a government book, use Amtower."
Yeah. It's good to have friends.
Especially best-selling friends.
Yeah, definitely.
So I did a book with them, and got a decent advance. But I doubt if I'd go that way again, because the process is really too long to go. I mean, you've been through that process.
Yeah.
It's over a year, and by that time there's stuff in that book I want to edit, and I can't. So next time out, I'm probably going to go the Amazon ebook route, and if people want a hard copy, Amazon will print them one.
Right.
But then I have the problem of, who am I going to get to edit this stuff? So I've my daughter, yes, but I have to have somebody also go through it for the factual part, those aspects. So I'll need a couple of different editing steps along the way to go that route. But I'm pretty sure I'm not pretty sure. I know that's the way I'm going to go.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. Mark, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. Why don't you tell us what your latest book is about, who your desired clients are, in case someone's listening to this, and how they can get in touch with you.
Well, anybody that wants to do business with the federal government, I'm happy to advise. And if I don't do what you need, the likelihood is I can introduce you to people who do what you need done. So my network is pretty huge. They can find me through LinkedIn, but again, I'm on the marketing side of the federal business. So content, social selling strategies, LinkedIn in particular, building that subject matter expert platform. Those have been my areas of focus the last couple of years. And Mark Amtower on LinkedIn is the easiest way to find me.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for listening to Top Business Leaders, the only podcast that shows you exactly how people just like you have built their businesses by writing a book. If you'd like to write your book but don't know where to start, you can find great information at writeyourbookinaflash.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back next week with another insightful interview to help you become a top business leader.